Welcome to the Lance Wallnau Show. Today we have as our special guest, Colonel Allen West. Now, Colonel Allen West was the congressman, I found out today, for Ann Coulter and Rush Limbaugh's district in Palm Beach, Florida. And then when he ran for re-election, man, they stole the election from him. He's the first guy I noticed that all of a sudden he's winning at midnight and then loses by 1 a.m. You've seen that happen before, right? But the man is a force to be reckoned with. He's got tremendous content on what's happening in America, what's happening in the military, and I interview him here today. You're going to love this show. So I took a break, and I walked off the set. You can go ahead, film the set. Take a look at the set. This is behind the scenes here, what goes on in the studio world, right? So I come walking over here, because my staff always is, they got the best cuisine. They're eating. See, I'm losing weight. Notice how much weight I've lost? But I'm eating different. I'm eating more carefully, and I'm eating a lot less. I go to the refrigerator, I open it up, and I see we got Good Rancher stuff all over the place. I said, wait a second. Fajita seasoned chicken breast strips, no antibiotics, no hormones, all natural. Then I was thinking, man, they're injecting stuff. You catch what's going on? The government is so flippin' intense on you getting jabbed with what they want you to get, that they're actually talking about putting stuff into the meat, into the cattle, etc. So I'm looking at this boneless, skinless chicken breast, beef top sirloin steak, the chopped Angus steak, and I'm going, wait a second, what's this? Ladies, this is the actual size of a chicken breast when it's healthy. You know that large, plump, huge chicken breast you're getting? That's the injections. That's the hormones. This is the actual size of a healthy chicken breast. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to go to do what I do. Get all your meat delivered to you. Pick out what you want. You can have, I think there's a special order for all this, including the bacon. And you get this for like one special price. You get a discount when you do it with lancewallnau.com/Good Ranchers. lancewallnau.com/Good Ranchers. Do what I'm doing. Get the best meat, the tastiest meat, the safest meat, and you'll be shocked at how convenient and economic it actually is. That's lancewallnau.com/Good Ranchers. And welcome to today's show with Lieutenant Colonel Allen West. Welcome to the Lance Wallnau Show. Today we're on the old set, my familiar set. And you know why? Because I have a very special guest today, Lieutenant Colonel Allen West. And for most of you, there's no introduction needed because he's already kind of iconic in my world as a conservative, as a veteran, as a military leader, as a former congressman. And I just ran into him recently at an event and just was fascinated with the range of information that he has that is so relevant to the conversations we have in this audience. I asked him to come on. He was very gracious and decided to come on. Colonel, thank you for joining us here.
It's my pleasure to be with you, Lance.
Now, if we could really maximize this time to do a download of everything you think a well-armed Christian conservative needs to know. What do we need to know that you're finding out there is a bit of fog of war?
Well, I will tell you first and foremost, I think that we need to go back and study John Locke. 1619, Second Treatise of Government, and understand what natural rights theory was all about. This was revolutionary because basically what John Locke built upon from Martin Luther to say that it is not that you have the right to have this personal relationship with the Heavenly Father and opening up the Bible to you, but all of your rights come from the Heavenly Father. And these natural rights of life, liberty, and property, those are not things that the government gives to you. And so when you understand that Thomas Jefferson read John Locke in the Second Treatise of Government, and when you look at the Declaration of Independence, it talks about the laws of nature and nature's God, and the fact that you're endowed with certain inalienable rights from the creator of these being life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. He changed it from property based upon the counsel of Benjamin Franklin, because he did not want people to believe that God gave you the right to own another person, because at the time, you had slavery. And
there was property
and
there. But it does show the extent to which real estate and ownership of your own land and your own house was a signature of your right to not be a serf to a monarchy or to a lord or someone else, the landlord. who owns you and your property.
Yeah, you're not a serf, and that said that here's the relationship, that you don't have to go to a king, a queen, a duke, a duchess, a lord with a little L. You have this relationship with your heavenly Father, and so that is fundamental to the establishment of the United States of America. And when you read the entire Declaration, which I just implore so many Christians to do, you will see that this is really saying that there are grievances of the people against a sovereign king, that really the individual is sovereign because they receive their rights from a sovereign God, big G, not the government with the little g. And so when I think about how the left and so many people, and you and I talked about this, they always go to Romans chapter 13 and they talk about how Christians have to be subject to government. But
all right, well, let's slow down because I want to make sure the average listener out there gets this. So the Romans 13 was the same verse that Hitler used to subdue the evangelicals in Germany. And he basically said, you do church, you let me do politics. And according to Romans, you should be subject to the higher powers in government and work with us and honor us. And you're under us. Don't try to take us on.
Absolutely. And so when you bring that back to here in the United States of America, another thing that Christians should read is Thomas Jefferson's letter to the Danbury Baptist Convention of Connecticut, where it talked about this idea of separation of church and state. Because so many people think, Lance, that it's in the Constitution or it's in the Declaration or it was in the Federalist Papers. No, it was Thomas Jefferson saying that we did not want to see a head of state become the head of church, which was the example of King Henry VIII when the Catholic Church would not grant him a divorce, so he created his own church. And if you did not worship and bow down to his church, which he was the head of, such as I think it was Thomas More did not do, his personal counsel, he was punished, he was persecuted, he lost his life. And that's why the Pilgrims came here, for religious freedom. And what's the very first liberty that you have in the Constitution of our Bill of Rights? The freedom of religion and the free exercise thereof. So if you understand these things, now all of a sudden when the government declares that there's some state of emergency with COVID and they're going to declare what is essential, the church is essential. You cannot go out and decree that the church is going to be shut down. You cannot go out and arrest people for meeting in parking lots separated or being in their cars separated like you saw they did in Kentucky.
They did. Sure they did. And Gavin Newsom, who threatened to lock up Che On, pastor in Pasadena, fine his church members $1,000 per service. And Che actually kept his church open, stood up against him, lost in 3 lower courts and then 1 in the Supreme Court.
Yes.
Thank God Trump put Gorsuch and some of those folks on the Supreme Court because they were watching the case. And it's not like everything automatically goes to the Supreme Court. There's 40,000 cases want to get there. They were watching it. You know why? They know. Then he wrote a paper later. The government was overreaching.
Far.
But they can't rule unless people take action.
That's right.
It's the way our system works.
Yeah.
They can't just go do a newscast and say, government's overreaching. They got to wait for the case and then go, bam, you cannot do that, government. So Newsom had to pay like $1 million fine. But I want to go back on this Danbury Baptist thing because it's too important a point that you're making. The letter was written by ministers concerned about the role of government.
Yes.
It wasn't written by government clarifying a wall of separation to churches.
Absolutely.
The origin of this was, don't worry about it. We're not going to establish a state religion. And every constitution, this is another thing people don't get, Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, New York, every state had a religious affiliation built into the state charter. So you've got Methodists here, Catholicism in Maryland, you've got Congregationalism over there, like in Massachusetts. Presbyterianism.
Yep.
And the concern was, well, we all have an awful lot of that Protestant and Catholic influence here. Which one is going to end up dominating? And the government said, no one's going to dominate. We're going to make sure you're free.
And that's the interesting thing, because Jefferson was writing to the Danbury Baptist Convention because they were concerned about Presbyterians.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah, that was it. They were concerned about the Presbyterians getting a leg up on them.
Oh.
And Jefferson wanted them to understand that there would not be any establishment of religion. And it was not to say that we're going to separate the Judeo-Christian faith heritage of this nation from the fabric of who we are. And I think that the fact that Christians have allowed the government to beat them about the head and shoulders, I always love it when I hear a pastor who comes out and says, well, you know, I can't really get into that political stuff because that's going to violate my 501c3 status. You know, you've got Kelly Shackelford at First Liberty right here in Plano, Texas, just waiting for someone to try to bring up that case because he'll destroy it. Absolutely. And furthermore, what pastors have to understand, Lance, is that when you show up on Judgment Day, pastor, God is not going to ask you about how did your 501c3 status go? He's going to ask you about whether or not you fed my sheep.
Yeah. You would almost think that the 501c3 non-profit tax-deductible giving was in the book of Acts. They didn't have that.
They didn't
the whole premise of sowing, reaping, and giving in the Bible is independent of tax deductions. It was done without tax deductions.
And the Johnson Amendment. I mean, you know, Lyndon Johnson, when he was Senator Lyndon Johnson, before he became president, the whole part of the Johnson Amendment was to get black preachers to stop talking about liberty and freedom, the civil rights movement. Why? Because it emanated out of the churches. And he wanted to try to shut that down. And so when you start to study and understand this history, you got to realize that the government is supposed to be subservient to us, the individuals. We are the ones that are sovereign over the government. And furthermore, when it comes to our faith, the government should not be coming in. And what I see happening today with the progressive socialist left, their new religion is open borders, the same-sex marriage, the murdering the unborn babies in the womb, the gender dysphoria, and the climate change. That's their new religion. And if you disagree with their new religion, you're going to get persecuted and prosecuted.
Folks, this is why I wanted him on. All right, now let's go down that list. Get a pen. When you listen to a guy, this is like a professor.
Oh, stop.
Get a pen, and so let's start this up. This new, and you're saying it's a new religion. It is. It's an ethical. They're framing it as a obligation, a moral obligation, almost as though, and you got to catch where the left is coming from. Cancel culture.
This portion is too hot to handle for social media. Go to lancewallnau.com/podcast to listen to the entire show.
Think about the most decorated combat infantry regiment in the United States Army, the 442nd Infantry Regiment, they were all Japanese. And so this
I didn't know that. Well, slow down a second. These are the facts you get only here, ladies and gentlemen. You don't hear them in other places. The 442nd, when was this?
The 442nd in World War II, the most decorated unit in World War II, Army unit in World War II. Daniel Inouye, the senator from Hawaii, he was in the 442nd. And so when people talk about, when Joe Biden comes out and says, you know, diversity is our strength, not really. It's quality that's our strength. Is bringing people together into a cohesive fighting unit. That's our strength. But when you're telling people that, Lance, because you're white, you're an oppressor, and Alan, because you're black, you're oppressed. Now, how in the Sam Hill?
What a great formula for division. You take young men that could be friends, and then you say, well, you've got original sin because of your skin pigment, and you've got original victimization because of yours, and you should be adversaries.
How are you going to put us in a foxhole together?
No, you're not. We're not finished with this subject, ladies and gentlemen. Matter of fact, let's say what we're going to do. We got a minute left, but I want to hold over the Colonel if it's okay. We're going to pick this conversation up for tomorrow because I want to go into that. I don't think we understand diversity, equity, and inclusion. I really want to break that out. I don't know how far we can go on it, but I get the quota part. Mm-hmm. But I want to get into this equity because I think the equity is where the equity of outcome, not equality of opportunity. I don't think the average American understands this will destroy the country. It's a great formula for a collapse of culture because you're not getting the most competent person flying the plane or doing air traffic control. You're getting someone that has a certain quota has got to be up there.
That's right.
All right, so folks, we're going to be coming right back again tomorrow. You don't want to miss this second part 2 with Lieutenant Colonel Alan West. We're going to be talking about what's happening right now, the things you need to know about. And as always, be hopeful because things are changing. We'll see you tomorrow. God bless.
Did you enjoy this latest episode? Please remember to share it with your friends, because the more knowledge you have, the better equipped you are to navigate the world.
Hey, let's take a moment right here and talk about something. You know, these programs are actually paid for by sponsors. And so the one thing that I always do is try to pick the sponsors that have the greatest value. Those are the ones that I myself believe in. Now, the Birch Gold Group is one of those key sponsors, and I'll tell you why. The economy is the area that I'm the most concerned about in terms of instability in the future. Do you know that right now, China and Russia and India is meeting with Saudi Arabians and South Africans to create an alternative economy, to basically crush the dollar? This is going to have a massive effect on the stock market, on real estate. It'll be a real shaking. But you don't have to be shaken, because there's a way you can protect your retirement, your 401ks, your IRAs, by connecting them in with gold. Gold is unique in history in that it's a place of stored value. In fact, those BRICS nations of Brazil and Russia, India and China, they're going to be backing themselves with, guess what? Gold. So be smart. I want you to go to lancewallnau.com/Birch and get a free information kit. Get knowledge, act quickly, don't wait. And they're going to be able to help you make a great decision on what to do. Remember, that information is free with no strings attached. Do it now, lancewallnau.com/Birch.